Hello, everybody. Welcome to Male Movement Podcast. Today, we're going to answer a real important question. Why now? Why is it important to do men's work now? Why are we doing this now? And what's the important part about what we're doing? So today, we're bringing in Marc. He can say hello.
Hi.
So Marc's one of brothers, founders, yoga teacher, great guy. He's been part of our circle for a while, and he really wanted to contribute more. So now he's part of the team, and I'm very happy to have him on here. And I'll let him introduce himself and say, why now?
Thanks, Charo. It's great to be here, and it's great to be part of the Male Movement team. I think that in Montreal, there are so many men that are ready for this, that opportunity to step into higher versions of masculinity, moving away from kind of traditional norms and what we've been told as men, the way that we're supposed to be. I think there's a craving for it in Montreal and wider. Obviously, there's a lot of movement going around in the United States, across Europe, in different organizations. So I'm really excited to be here, really excited to be part of this journey with you.
Super happy to have you. Honestly, Montreal has been a good place for this. In Canada, sometimes I feel like Montreal is slightly ahead of the curve. So people have been getting into this for a little while. It's been nice to see it grow so rapidly just between our little organization, and then also seeing other bubbles pop up. So you can see there's a hunger, a want, a need, and people are answering the call, which is really nice to feel.
Yeah, and I've been seeing, I'm in the yoga space, and I follow a lot of different studios, and almost every studio now wants to host a men's circle of some kind. And that's not something that I saw, 3 or 4 years ago. I really think that there is a collective shift towards men's work. And, in current society, I feel like women have been doing this a lot. There's been women's circles. Women have more of propensity to kind of gather and share more openly amongst each other. I feel like, from my own experience, having an actual space to go do that for men feels more natural, or feels a little safer than potentially just opening yourself up to a friend, not knowing how it's going to be received. So having these safe spaces for men to really open up, to connect with each other and to connect back to themselves, I think is really important. And I really see like a wave picking up right now.
So I love that, because I only found out about women's circles when I went traveling like 6 or 7 years ago, maybe 8. And I was like, why don't men do this? Like, I see them I was like, this is such a great thing to do. And then I came back to Montreal. I'm like, that was the question. Like, why don't men do more of this? Like, what's the wall? What's the holdback? But I think it's also important for a good question. What is a men's circle? I'll let you answer that one.
A men's circle is a space for men to gather and show up as their authentic selves. That's what I really try to put forward when I orchestrate and when I host a circle. It's to show up and your most authentic self. And men have been gathering for thousands of years. Thousands and thousands of years. There have been men's councils and tribes. Men have been, even if it was just about hunting, or even discussing the societal impact of a small tribe, men's circles have been happening for thousands of years. And in modern society, it's evolved into, hey, let's gather to talk about sports. Let's gather to shoot the shit. Let's gather to have some fun. All of that is great, but then there's also a level of depth that's missing to that, I think. And that's why creating spaces like men's circles, like male, like the Elevated Self is one that I created. A lot of organizations, I'm a part of Sacred Sons. So a lot more organizations now are realizing that these more sacred spaces for men don't necessarily come as naturally as potentially they do for women. So creating them with intention and having them open to men who really want to be part of it is really impactful.
So I always love, there's a lot of good information there. I like the fact that we were talking, like, people do gather. We are still gathering. but we're distracted. So we're gathering and talking about anything that is distracting. So
That's external.
yeah,
Yeah.
sports, cars, finances, everything else. And when we're in the circle, all of a sudden we're not talking about that anymore. The circle is really about you, yourself. How are you feeling? Where are you going? Try to figure that out. So that's very important. And I think there's a huge thing that's been happening for years. I can't even say how long, is the fact that we're like literally always isolated. Everybody lives by themselves now. If you look at most people, including myself, I have a home where I'm alone. I spend most of my time doing things by myself, and I don't sit with people in a space where I will talk about what I need to be talking about, which is the difference between wanting and needing. Sometimes I need to talk about something, and I don't have a place for that.
Yeah. In some of the men's gatherings, you can leave there having the most profound connection with a man after having spent, whether it's 4 hours, an entire day, or 4 days, and have no idea what he does for work. Because it's, when you think about it, like, does it really matter? Sure, eventually down the line, I'd want to know how you spend most of your days or most of your week, but getting to know the deepest part of you is so much more impactful. And I think that there's a very quick tendency to want to jump into, so what do you do? Right. And I lived in Toronto for a long time. And that was one of the first questions that you get asked if you're at a bar, if you're at a social gathering, is, hey, what do you do? Men or women, right? And that's kind of the societal thing, right? The job, like you said, the finances, the external image of who Marc is, of who Charo is more important than what's alive in you right now. What is brewing? Like, is there, what is the feeling that has been most present for you in this last week? You know, things that we wouldn't usually ask people, and those have a space to come up in these circles.
Hey, talking about emotions is taboo. So what's alive in you is a very weird question for most people to hear. When you see men ask that question for the first time.
I guess you're right. But if someone came up to me in the street and said, hey, what's alive in you right now? I'd be like,
yeah, you'd be like, hold on, what does that mean, first of all? And then you rephrase that. But it's true. I mean, they say this a lot. A man's title is more important than himself, I would say. Like, a lot of times you'll see, like, literally, if you ask a man something, his title, his job, and his things will be more important than himself. And that's part of the society we grew up in, is I need to be this to be valued.
Yeah. And, you know, thanks for bringing that up, because I recently fell into that trap myself, you know, and I really try to be more intentional about not asking about work and not asking about, I want to go deeper with some of my, especially male friends. And a friend asked me the other day, so how have you been? And I started talking about, like, what I'm doing for work. And right now I'm kind of in between things. I'm working on mail. I'm spending a lot of time on that. So I kind of started talking about, you know, oh, well, I guess I'm not really working. I'm teaching yoga, and I'm working on this passion project. And he looked at me and he said, I didn't ask you about work, man. How are you doing? And that took me back. And I actually really opened up a lot more about how I've been feeling, how I've been, you know, actually battling through some of my edges. So it was really nice to hear that from a friend, and a really important reminder to, it's not about the LinkedIn headline, right? It's not about how many homes I sold last week. I don't sell homes, but, you know, it's about what's really going on.
I wonder how often we bypass what's really going on. I can probably tell you I don't answer that question enough. It's a question I should be answering almost daily, which I'm answering more now. But I think the majority of my life, before I really started, like, looking in, I would never ask that question or answer that question. Like, what's going on actually inside of you? Not the whole, everybody points outwards.
Yeah.
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 So it's an interesting space to be. I'll go to the main question. Why now? Why is men's work now? Why is it important? And why did you want to be doing it, most importantly?
Wow. Great question. And I think we touched on it briefly, but I think there really is a momentum right now with, I think maybe it's something in the air, or there's really just been an evolution in the consciousness of a lot of men that are craving this, craving connection. Like you said, there's more and more isolation, especially in men. It's kind of getting to a bit of a boiling point where it's more than just it should happen now, it needs to happen now. This rising of consciousness of masculinity and coming back to some of the more core traits of masculinity, of presence, of showing up, of containment, of security, not of alpha, not of flashy, not of patriarchy, things like that. So I think that why now is because there really is a big movement towards that. And I think that I don't think that there was necessarily a readiness before. I think there was a lot happening in the world, especially if you look in the last few years, with everything shutting down, that created more isolation and people were scared. People were not necessarily ready. And I think through that, organizations like Male actually flourished. And through that, in the US, Sacred Sons also really grew a lot in the last few years because there was so much isolation that was created and came about. So I think that now is the time. I think tomorrow is also the time, but I think we need to start now. Yeah. Why do you think now is a good time, Charo?
Why is now a good time? I mean, now is always a better time than tomorrow. It's always a simple one. I also know myself personally, like I've waited for too many things for too long. So the whole waiting for the right time, right place is always just pushing things back. Why is right now a good time to start a men's movement or improving or growing as men? I think we've done a lot of damage. I think men, unfortunately, might not be us, but we've learned those traits. They've been passed on to us. We have seen them all our lives. I think men have done immense damage in this world, and it's up to men to also fix that. Like, we need to do the work. And I don't mean the work by the big thing, but if I can help one person, that person helps one person, and that chain keeps going, it will make a difference. It will change the things. So it's not about waiting. It's about getting there now, because that like the rupture that's happening and that has happened is only going to keep growing until we all put our hands together and start pulling that back.
Yeah.
So it's more about, we have done a lot of the damage, and I think we're still doing a lot of damage. If you look at all the heads of the big companies and all these things, they're still run by men who have those traits that we don't want to follow. Mm-hmm. So we can hopefully find a way for men to follow their own hearts, their own minds, their own souls, and start repairing that bridge and bringing it back.
I think you really touch on a few really good points there. And, if I can help one man, then that man can help one other man. And it's really hard to change the world, but you can contribute to changing someone's life. And I think a lot of that, I think the step that you described as, I can help another man, I think that's step one. But step 0 is I need to help myself. And although men have caused a lot of damage, I really believe that a lot of men are hurt. And healing that hurt within myself and actually taking action on it is going to allow me to show up better for my friend who needs it. Is going to allow me to show up better for my partner who needs my masculine presence. It's going to allow me to show up better in society with, healthy masculine traits to bring forward my gifts of service. So I think that, there's, yes, going outward and helping other people, but I think that a big part of the why now of men's work is because as a collective, as a lot of men, I think we really need to heal ourselves so that we can help others heal.
Love that. I always share this, and this has always been important in my core, my life, my being. The importance of letting somebody be the individual. So as we grow through male and everything else is really like, I don't want people to be more like me. I want people to be more like them. So when it comes to healing a man, it's letting him find himself. There's a lot of people who we choose to follow somebody else. Like we're going to find somebody who we want to mimic for a while. And sometimes we just mimic them for a lifetime. And that's not going to fix the thing, because we're just going to become the same copy of somebody else. When you're saying we all have something inside that we want to give to somebody else. And the best version of me is being me. So I think as we go through male, it'll be really important, and this is what I'll always be leaning into, is to let every man find himself so he can be the best version of himself and then support everybody else around him.
Yeah, that resonates a lot. And one of the teachings in the yogic tradition is the 4 rules of Dharma. Dharma meaning, there's a lot of names, connotations around the word Dharma. I believe it to mean higher purpose. Your, what you are here to contribute. The 4 rules of Dharma are that you have a gift. Every single man has something that is special about him that is uniquely yours. Then the second rule is to go all in on your gifts. Not to bury them, to be authentic about your gifts, to really show up as that gifted person. And what usually gets in the way of that is ourselves. The third rule of Dharma is to get out of your own way. And because that is what stops us from these gifts, is usually, I'm not good enough. I'm alone. Who am I to do this? So get out of your own way. And easier said than done, obviously. But that's the third rule. The fourth rule is to give your gifts away. So realize that you have gifts, to really master those gifts, to allow yourself to go in on it, to get out of your own way, and then give them away. I think whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, I think this applies to every single human being. I think now, where we are today, this is even more important for men, that we really do have gifts. We have things that we can give to the world in higher service without expecting anything in return, just to give.
I love all that again. And it's cool because those are like really good, simple rules.
Yep.
But they're so hard to follow.
Oh my. Simple doesn't mean easy.
No, simple and easy are the worst. Yeah. Actually, there's a quote that I read. Funny enough, I read this quote in my hat when I was a kid. It was
breathe deep?
No, it was on the inside of my hat when I was a kid. And I was maybe 12 when I read this. And it said, beaten path are for beaten men.
Oh.
Yeah, and that stayed with me forever. So that whole easy, like, we'll usually follow the path that everybody else has guided, but to be ourselves is the actual simplest path, but it's the hardest one. You got to go like forge your own way. I don't know why that was in that hat, why that stuck there, but it stayed for a long time.
We should try to find that hat.
Reebok, 1996.
So I think So how is that kind of manifested in your life? Like how you read that when you were really young. How have you actually applied that? That's pretty powerful stuff.
I mean, I've never been on the beaten path, I don't think. I'm the one who always ran around and tried too many things, and I, for some reason, never wanted to be in the box. I actually want to be back in the box a little bit partially now, which is kind of interesting. I will always be out there learning to separate, but there are parts of this world I need to be in to grow with it. So like to build this brand, business, whatever we're doing, I do need to construct. So the beaten path are for beaten men is the way I think, the way I am, the way I do. But I want to come back to the structure so I can contribute more. Because there is, I like the saying too, structure creates freedom. So the more structure I can put into following my Dharma, the farther I believe it'll get me.
Yeah, I resonate with that. I think, yeah, discipline is freedom. The more the concept of, Mark Manson's Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck is choosing what the fuck to give about, or what to give a fuck about. And it's incredibly powerful, because what you choose to give a fuck about is what you are choosing to be disciplined towards. And when you make those choices, those conscious choices, that's freedom. I made the conscious decision to be disciplined about not drinking alcohol for 6 months. And it feels like a shackle, because I want sometimes to drink, but I'm disciplined in my capacity to do this kind of challenge. And I feel very free in that decision, even though it might sometimes not feel that way. But I really believe that through discipline and through structure, right? I think that's the word that you use, structure, that is freedom. Like, if you're very intentional about how you are building your structure, or how you structure your day, or how you decide to really move through a year, that creates freedom through intentionality. I think that that's a really important point.
There's a lot of points to touch on there. So I'm more like, which one do I touch with first? So as we're talking, it's like, I think a lot of men have this, we do a lot. Something like that. Too far, never mind. But we do a lot, but we don't do enough with intention.
Yeah.
So the latest part, and I've been learning this from so anybody that doesn't know, I'm 46. For the last 6 years, have been the best part of my life, super challenging, but the last 6 years I've really been loving my nose. So I used to say yes to everything, all the partying, all the things, and just letting myself go out there because that's felt right. But now I say no to a lot because I want my energy to go in certain directions. And it's really permitted me to grow in those areas, which have made me a better version of myself. So I love a good no. A good no leads to an even better yes.
Exactly. I think an important question to ask ourselves is, what are you saying yes to by saying no? There's the sacred no leads to a fuck yes. What are you saying fuck yes to? And then, yes, you'll have to say probably a lot more than one sacred no for that one fuck yes. But that one fuck yes, I think, really needs to be clear. And, in the last few months for me, this is very alive for me. I just tended to take on so many different projects. I was trying to occupy my time. And by doing so many things, I was doing all of them not well. And I was getting overwhelmed. And I dropped the ball on some stuff that I didn't want to drop the ball on. So by choosing, being more focused, being more structured and disciplined, I've made so much more progress, especially with things related to male movement. Like, that's what I really wanted to focus on before going on this retreat, that I wanted to get to a certain point. So I just put all my eggs in that basket for now, do a sprint, and we've made some tremendous movement so far. So focus and discipline really does go a long way.
And it's funny as you say that. I think we spend a lot of time, yes is easy. No makes me anxious.
Oh, say more.
Because when you say no, you have to close the door on things. You're turning away from your habits. You're turning away from things you might have liked for so long. And now you got to be like, fuck, I'm going to close that door. And you're like, oh, fuck, I've been doing this for so long. It's like drinking. Perfect thing. Like, you sit there and you're like, yeah, but it's part of my character. It's part of my personality. It's part of who I am. If I say no, all the friends I've made, all the things and going out, all these things, I'm going to close that door. It creates a moment where you're like, okay, this is a little bit harder than I think it was going to be. Saying yes is easy. Saying yes to going out and having fun and doing it is super easy. Saying yes to all your old habits, super easy. Putting those down and wanting to do something else, I get a little crazy and anxious on the inside.
It creates, it's a scary moment to say no and not justify it. I think in a lot of situations, I found myself, I've been a yes man my entire life, at least my adult life. And it kind of goes with my personality, you know, positive, optimistic. Yeah, fuck yeah, I'm down. Yeah, let's do it. Yes, 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 yes. To get to a point where I spread myself thin, and even professionally, I tend to say yes to a lot of different projects that remove my focus from the things that I could be doing really well. And I just find a lot of men with this yes tendency. Like you said, saying no is scary. It's vulnerable. It's not easy, but it's also really important, because by saying no, what are you really saying yes to? Health, choices, time, priorities, partnership, business, purpose, dharma, friends. Really getting specific on the fuck yeses in my life, writing them down, has made a really, really big impact on the way that I am so much more confident in saying no.
So, I hear this a little bit in you right now, and I'll see. I've hadn't met a lot of men. How many men do you think are leaning into people pleasing and not being them true selves?
How many is a tough question. There are a lot of men on this planet.
Yeah, I want the exact number.
I'm going to go with 3,476,000,000.
So that's more than 72%. Perfect.
Is that the number you're going?
Exactly.
I think that yes, there is a lot of people pleasing happening in men, especially with that nice guy mentality. I think more than people pleasing, I think there is a kind of a societal pleasing, a role that a man is supposed to play in society. I think that's what a lot of men say yes to is, well, I need to be stronger. I have to have status. And that is going to make me happy. That is what's going to get the women. And you know, it's these old ideas of masculinity a little bit, but they're still prominent. Like even I have some of those tendencies sometimes, like, I wish I could be making more money so that I could have, you know, more status and all these. It's still in the back of my mind because it is part of the conditioning. So yes, there is a lot of people pleasing happening. There's a lot of yesness. There's a lot of niceness. But I think bigger than that is just that conformity, or those ideals of what masculinity should look like, that men kind of lean into.
It'd be interesting as we develop and learn. I wonder how long this conformity of our version of masculinity has been around for. Because it is, from my knowledge, been there too long, first of all.
And it's getting tired.
It's tiring for everybody. But
it's feminine too.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Like, I've been lucky. I was raised with a sister and a mother, so I get to see that a lot. I know a lot of great women around me, and I hear their things. And it's definitely tiring. It's going to be an interesting road to change.
Yeah.
I heard something actually that I want to share, which is I found super interesting on another podcast. And they were saying, like, what's the best way to change what's the masculinity in this world? And it's kind of like they gave up on older men. They gave up on men past their 30s and 40s. They're like, it could take too much time and too much effort. We need to focus on the younger generation. I find that one hard because I'm an older man. And it's like that whole saying, like, a leopard can't change his stripes or spots, whatever it is. And it's like, I know tons of men who've changed out there. I know not everybody has. So it's like a hard thing to balance. Most people will remember the people who haven't changed.
Yeah.
But the amount of people I've met who have and have a bigger impact on this world, I find phenomenal. So I found that one really hard to, like, okay, so you're just going to give up on all of the population over their 30s because they even said in their 20s, because you think it's not going to happen. How do you feel about that?
I think it's unfortunate. I also think it's very easy to blame, and I think it is harder to praise. I think there's a big tendency to point fingers and say, this is the problem, let's focus elsewhere, or let's find another solution. Like you said, there's a lot of men out there who are potentially causing more problems and who aren't, necessarily showing up as the best forms of masculinity. And we're very quick to blame that. Whereas there are a lot of really amazing men who, like you said, have changed and who are paving the way for other men to change. And you don't hear as much about that. So I think that that's one of the stories that we need to rewrite if we want to make these movements like the ones that we're starting and the ones that we're part of. We need to do a better job at sharing those stories. And I think, we're on this platform, right? We have this platform now. We're able to diffuse some of these messages. There's another brother of mine from Sacred Sons who also started a podcast about the men who are leading in Sacred Sons. The Sacred Sons podcast is, and other great platforms, Man Talks, and all of those are really important to not just hear about the bad things men are doing, but also really put the spotlight on amazing work that is happening in the space. And that's, I hope, only going to keep amplifying.
I agree with all of that. Hopefully, well, not hope. We're already working on it. So, and it is what they called it. Gossip is so easy, and it's so easy to point in that direction. It's actually our go-to. It's how humans learn to communicate. And say gossip is the number one thing we do. And if you think about when you're rewiring your own brain, just switching from something that's negative to positive, like gratitude, is such a thing that we don't learn. So we always point, or my brain always goes, or our brains always want to go to that. What's harming us? What are we afraid of? What are we first? Or when we can start talking about the positive. Here's a good question.
Just on that, sorry, may I?
Of course you may.
And I think a lot of what you just said was on, this fear around not conforming, this fear around being the outcast and being judged. And instead of, really going towards gratitude, or going towards positive change. And usually that's uncomfortable. It's new, it's different, it's hard. It's like, how can I go back into safety? And, our infinite potential lives outside of our comfort zone. And every single moment we have an opportunity to step forward into growth or back into safety. And there is a lot of inertia. There's a lot of stepping back into safety. There's a lot of that in my life. And it's a constant reminder to lean into discomfort. Even just, sharing my voice about this topic is vulnerable, even though this is what I do. And I'm stepping into this gift, but it's scary. And I want to go back into safety because that's what I know, and that's more conforming. But I know that growth, especially for men in this space, needs to happen. It's going to come from leaning into discomfort. So I just wanted to thank you for that point and just add that little cherry on top.
Love it. So let's celebrate one man. So if you had to celebrate one person, one man that helped you change your life right now, who would that person be?
If I had to celebrate one man, I'm going to get emotional.
That's good. That's what we're here for.
My dad passed away when I was 9, and it was really hard, obviously, as a 9-year-old boy. But And at that time in my life, my aunt kind of came to live with my sister, my mom, and I, and her husband, Shel. And, he played a big part of a father figure for me for most of my life. It still does. And, even though he wasn't my father, he taught me so much about love, about presence, about growing up as a man, about shaving, He's someone who had a tremendous impact and continues to have a big impact in my life. His partnership with my aunt, his willingness to be better, and continuous personal improvement, facing challenges head on and moving through. These are all things that I learned from Shel. So thank you, Shel.
That was spectacular. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How about you? Is there a man in your life that you wish to celebrate?
So I don't think I had any really great men in my life for a very long time. My dad, as much as I can say I love my dad, was drug addicted, alcoholic. My stepdad was just as bad. So for the first, I would say, like 20 years of my life, I had those as guides. And then for the next 10 years after that, I just kind of followed that path. So my circle became, I sold drugs, drug dealers, everybody who has a bad influence. So I only really started getting good men in my life later on, which was interesting. I started separating my circle. So I literally had to leave my entire world behind. So I started making really close friends. But there's one, this will be a story that I'll always say. There's a guy that I'd met working at a restaurant. His girlfriend was working with me. His name's Jonathan. I've talked about him many times. I'll get him on this podcast. When we met, he was still drinking, didn't go through recovery yet. And then I saw him a couple of times. I never really clicked with him. And then I saw him like 7 years later. Completely changed man. Did his rehab, started taking care of kids, really like englobed this whole thing of wanting to be a better man. And I met him at the gym, started connecting again. And I remember just a couple weeks later, he walked over and he said, "Are you okay?" And I started crying because I was going through a really tough point in my life and I couldn't even lift anything. I was just standing there numb. And he's like, "Are you okay? Are you good?" And I said, "No, I'm not." And it was the first time I answered that question honestly. And he said, "You want to go for a walk?" I said, "Yes." And then he offered his help for like 9 to 10 weeks. He said, "I'm going to meet you every Monday, 7:30 a.m. We're going to have a coffee. We're going to go for a walk, and then we're going to train." And that time, somehow, some way, just having somebody to talk to for the first time I feel in my life, where I really let myself open up. I would cry every day, and I would just be like, "What the fuck is happening?" And he supported that and held that the whole time. It changed me. It made me who I am now because I was like, oh, this is a person I can open up to. He explained all these theories of life, and it came at a time where I was desperate and reaching for help. And he was there with an open hand and open heart, and it really changed my world. So, yeah.
It's like he knew that you needed that hand when he came over and asked. I think we talked about this before we hit record, but I think step zero, or for a lot of men that don't know how to navigate a difficult situation, or when you're kind of at that rock bottom, you can't lift anything, one of the hardest things to do is ask for help. And it can be completely paralyzing to ask for help. Again, some of those stories that we have around, like, you got to man up, you got to take care of your shit, you got to have your shit figured out. What do you mean you need help? Get up, do it. Fuck that. Right? And it's so important to have help, to have support. And there's a crazy epidemic of isolation and loneliness right now, especially in men who don't have support, who don't have someone that they can actually reach out to. And I think it is a two-way street. He came to you and offered that hand, offered that support. If there's a man in your life that you think needs your help, that needs a hand, offer it, because it might be the hardest thing that that man has ever done is to want to reach out and ask for help. So extend that hand and ask for a hand, because fuck, it's important.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier. It's what's the first step that every man should take when they're having a hard time, or when they want to change, or when they want to do everything. And like we said, it's the thing that we'd never ever do, is ask for help. And it's such ingrained in us. It's such a thing where like it's shameful, you feel guilty, you feel sad. But the moment you do and it's received, it changes. You're like,
Oh my God,
I have support again. I have something. I don't have to keep this all in. And that is honestly probably the only reason why I started doing this, because I had somebody and showed me those ways, and I was like, we need to do more of this. And it is the most important thing, and it's hard to find.
again, I think the spaces that we're able to create for men create this ease to be able to go into those conversations. And yeah, it's hard to find, because as men, we have barriers up. Can't show vulnerability. Can't show that I need help. I gotta have my shit figured out. And you don't. We're all just figuring it out, man.
And it's also hard to find because it's not always there. Like
That too.
like when my entire life I was like, okay, well, where do I find the people that are going to be my people? So I've explored a lot, I've traveled a lot, I've done tons of things, and finding your people is, I find it obviously easier sometimes outside of your home, because you're going to be more open and expressful, and like you're not constrained by your time of work. But when you come back home in your regular 9 to 5, those habits, those things, they kind of come right back real fast. And then now, and that's when you need the help. It's in your regular day that I need the help. It's in my 9 to 5 regular life, when I'm with my family, when I'm with my girlfriend, when I'm with all these things that are just like, how do I get out of this? That's why a lot of people I see that you travel, you go, you learn, you feel great, but you come back and it's like a slap in the face. You go right back into it, and then you want to go back out again. But you need to be able to understand that if I can build the world I want in me and around me, I don't need to escape anymore.
That's beautiful. And simple, but hard.
What did we say before?
Simple is not easy.
Simple is probably the hardest thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. I want to touch on something that you mentioned earlier about you were saying that one of the reasons that you created this a few years ago, what is this? What did you create, and how did it come to be?
So they always say you create what you need in your own world. So I was just lucky. I met a bunch of really good guys, good men over the last couple of years, and the conversation opened up to creating, which is super important to me, is community. So creating a community of healthy people, and in this case, men, because I already had that around me, but healthy men that I can be around more often. And the more often I was around the right men, the faster I progressed and the safer I felt. So male in its own is a community. That's always going to be the word I use, because it's one I love. And the more we can be in touch with each other, the more we spend time with each other, the more we grow with each other, the faster this community will grow, and the faster each man will grow. Does that explain that properly?
Yeah, it does. And I think that now's the time. I think that now's the time for men to gather in these settings. I think more than ever, community is becoming important. a lot of the happiest places on earth are some of the places that have the most communal aspect to them. And North American lifestyle has led us to be in isolation. And community, real community that is deep and not just hollow, that is authentic, that is true, takes work. Friend groups can feel that way sometimes, just because we've been friends for a long time. I mean, we have that depth, and creating that depth, whether it's in a community or a friend group or in a male movement, it takes work, and it takes men showing up as their authentic selves, in vulnerability, in authenticity, knowing that they are safe.
I'm going to add something super important. In fun and in play.
Oh.
Like, we need to, this doesn't always have to be a work, and oh my God, my soul's open. No, you just need to go laugh and have a good time with some people and open up and just enjoy that time, because that's what we did as kids and that's what we got away from. You need to go out there and laugh and play. Like, your best friends are the people you open up to, and all of a sudden you're saying your stupid shit and it feels good because you're like, oh, I can be me. And laughing and having a good time is such an important part about being me. I love when I see people laughing.
Mm-hmm.
I always say that's one of my favorite things. When I see somebody letting themselves play, they feel safe. That means they finally opened up. They're like, okay, I can really just shake everything off. My walls are down. I'm going to go outside. I'm going to play with everybody else. You see kids, like, they hide in the corner, and then as soon as they feel comfortable, they start giggling and want to come play with you. Same thing as adults.
It's so true. And that inner child in men is still so prominent when it's given the space to come out and play and to really express. We've done such a great job at repressing that inner child, repressing that play, seriousness, work, woo, no. Like, can we just have fun and just have fun? Yes, there is seriousness to life. Yes, there's shit that needs to get done. Yes, there's discipline. Can we do it with a smile?
Can we enjoy this life that we have? Yeah. All right. So what's your why? Why do you think it's time?
It's my why. I found my why in plant medicine ceremony, specifically around men's work. I had a realization that how much men were hurting in society and how much I was hurting from past conditioning and from expectations and ideals that I didn't necessarily feel that I fit into, and it was taking a big toll on me. I want to help rewrite the script about what it means to be a man in society. I want to help men find their way back to their hearts. I don't think that it's easy. I'm in the process of it. I don't have my shit figured out, but I do really believe that in community and in support and being witnessed by other men, I have felt some of the biggest breakthroughs in my life in these spaces, and I hope to be able to share that with others.
Love that. Thanks for sharing. What are the 3 things you want to see more of in men?
Play, connection, and compassion.
Like the last one. I'm like, play and connection, we're spot on. I'm like, compassion, it's a good one. What's compassion mean to you?
Compassion is kindness. Compassion is selfless action. Service is meeting people where they are and having a soft heart, having your guard down, and just being in love. The capital L.
The big L.
The big L.
At the right hand. I'm like, whatever that is. Awesome. Okay. Anything you want to end this podcast with? A message you want to share?
Everything in life is a choice. And especially how we react to situations. It's very easy to quickly fall into habits of patterns and reacting from a place of what is expected or what you know. What's difficult is reacting from a place of intentional choice and choosing compassion. I would love to close with what I say at the end of every yoga class. If you'll join me.
Go for it.
Yeah. Loka samasta sukhinu bhavantu. May all beings be happy and free, and may the thoughts, words, and actions of our own lives contribute to the happiness and to the freedom for all.
Love that. So, thank you for being part of this. Thank you for the effort you've been putting in for the last couple of weeks and helping get this movement going. It's going to take more and more people just to make this ball go. Very excited to be spending probably the next couple of years working together. And for anybody who wants to chat and look at us, we are based in Montreal. Most of our events will be here for the next 6 months at least, if not longer. And we want to see more of you. We want to spend more time with people. We want to be together as often as we can, doing things that'll just bring out the best of every man. The goal is every man finding himself with each other. And we will do as much as we can to support that, to grow with people, and just to be present with them. And also present with myself, because I think that's super important.
Yeah. It starts with the self.
It starts
at point zero.
If this will be done on time, hopefully I will get this done on time because it's a whole new learning process. First event will be on May 26th at Valhalla. It's where we've done all of our beginning of year events for the summer. Always called The Return. Been amazing every year. 50 to 60 men showing up, spending the day together, doing amazing things, and also having fun and connecting, which I've always enjoyed. I think that's what I always bring to the table because it's part of my character. And then on that note, anything you'd like to say?
Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be on this journey with you, to be really putting some momentum into this movement, and I'm really excited to see where it takes us.
Hey, talk to you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.